The old man in the frame is whispering again. My name is William Garner, Staff Sergeant, 1st Platoon, Easy Company, 15th Infantry, 3rd Division. In '45 they billeted us in a Bavarian castle for 3 nights. The portraits on the walls started whispering our names in German after dark. When we pulled out, I was stupid enough to steal one and bring it home. Now it hangs on the wall of this little room, between a cheap wooden crucifix and 3 photos of my kids. I sit in my worn recliner, oxygen tube hissing softly in my nose, TV flickering blue and white with some game I'm not really watching. The radiator clanks, someone's walker squeaks in the hallway. The air smells like boiled carrots and disinfectant. The frame in the middle doesn't belong here. Dark wood, old, the paint inside cracked in lines I know better than my own fingerprints. Garner, the painted man breathes. My last name in a voice that rolls the R, hits the second syllable too hard. Bavarian, thick and slow. He has a narrow face, pointed beard, little dark eyes. In the light from the TV, his pupils look wet. I stop breathing for a second. The oxygen pops in my nostrils. From the hallway, Nurse Karen calls, Mr. Garner, you need anything before meds? I look at the door, then back at the portrait. His mouth is where it always is. Paint, cracked varnish, a tiny flake hanging from his lower lip like a piece of dry skin. No, I say, I'm good. He whispers again, low enough that it might be the radiator if I wanted to lie to myself. Garner, William, Erster, Zug, Erst, Grupp. Exactly the way I heard it once in that castle. Read off a list by a German voice that shouldn't have known I was coming. He shouldn't know that much now. He shouldn't remember the roster. I pinch the bridge of my nose until stars dance in my vision. My fingers are spotted, skin thin as paper. But when I close my eyes, they still expect the weight of an M1 on my shoulder and the smell of cold stone under oil paint. On the dresser under the frame sits a little brass plate from the VA, the one they gave me on the 70th anniversary of the end of the war. My name and unit, neat and straight, machine engraved. My gaze keeps jumping between the plate and the portrait. Down the hall, somebody coughs until it turns into a wet, tearing bark. A cart rattles over a threshold. A TV laugh track bursts out, then cuts off when a door closes. The room quiets again. Garner, the portrait breathes, just loud enough for me to hear. You took me. You remember which night? The painted man keeps his eyes on me. He always does that. Even when the lights are off, I feel it. The room is too small for us both. I reach for the remote, turn the TV volume up. The roar of a crowd fills the room, some announcer shouting about a play. That sound doesn't live in the same world as the whisper. Bill, my first name now, soft as breath on the glass. The recliner creaks as I lean forward. My knees hurt, and my right hip sparks like old wire. I stand anyway, one hand on the armrest, the other on the walker. The world tilts a little. I shuffle across the room. Up close, the portrait smells of old oil and dust and a faint trace of smoke no one else ever seems to notice. The man wears black, high collar, a thin gold chain disappearing into his vest. Behind him, there's just darkness and the suggestion of a stone arch. I touch the bottom of the frame with my fingertips. You don't get to say my name, I tell him. The glass is cold, colder than the room. Colder than the metal bedrail I grab onto at night. My breath fogs the surface for a second. In that little patch of mist, his mouth moves. Not a trick of light, not the way paint cracks. His lips part. Teeth show. Tiny white, too many of them. They are not painted at all. He exhales into my face. It smells like the dust from that castle's attic and the stone stair that led down to the cellar. And the room full of portraits. The room that was waiting for us in April of 1945. Behind me, the radiator pops. I hear boots on stone again, not linoleum. I hear names read from a roster in a voice that isn't ours. All right, I mutter. All right, you want it, you can have it. I slide my hand up under the bottom of the frame, feeling the old wood. The rough place where I pried it off the castle wall. My thumb hits the little nail hole on the back edge. It fits there like a worn worry stone. I'm standing in two places now. This little VA room in Ohio, and the cold second floor of a Bavarian castle we'd been told to use as a billet because the war was all but over, and someone thought a roof of carved beams and painted ancestors was a nice change from barns and foxholes. The castle, I say aloud. My voice is thin, but it lands. The man in the frame listens. You remember them, don't you? I say. You remember us all. He smiles with the corner of his mouth. The same way he did the night he first spoke my name in that long hallway lined with faces. The canteen cup rattles on the little metal bedside table behind me, as if someone bumped it. No one did. I hear Benny's laugh under that sound, the scrape of his boot on stone, the wet smack when his cigarette butt hit the courtyard 12 meters below. Tell it, Benny says behind my left ear. His voice hasn't aged at all. I'm tired, I answer. Tell it, he insists. Tell them how you walked us into a house full of hungry paintings. The oxygen machine hums. My heart taps faster against my ribs. I keep my hand on the frame, the way I did the night we first found that hidden door. The wood is the same. The shiver in my wrist is the same. If I tell it, I say, you shut up. You stop saying their names. The painted man's eyes soften, as if he's heard a good joke. His lips move. Deal, he whispers. It starts with the snow that wouldn't melt in the shadows of the pines. Even in April, we were moving south through Bavaria with the 3rd Infantry Division, 7th Army, the last push toward the mountains. Orders said keep pressure on what was left of the Wehrmacht, cut off any retreat into the Alps. They called it a redoubt. Most of us called it chasing ghosts. That day the ghosts turned real. Our company had spent the last week clearing little towns that seemed empty until somebody's chicken coop exploded with an MG-42. Stone farmhouses, church towers, roadblocks made of wagons and dead horses. The usual. Then we came to the hill with the castle. You saw it before the town. A dark bulk against the late afternoon sky. Square tower on one end, pointed tower on the other. Steep roofs in between. Red tiles, slate gray where they were broken. A curtain wall that had seen more centuries than any of us could count. Below it, the town clustered like children around their father's knees. Whitewashed houses, steep roofs, church spire with a cross that still shone when the sun hit it. The column halted just outside the first houses. Engines idled. Exhaust puffed in the cold air. A field kitchen trailer rattled behind one of the trucks like it had arthritis. Somewhere a cow load. Jesus, Benny Ruiz said next to me, chin tilted up, eyes on the castle. You think they got a princess up there? He was a short, wiry kid from Brooklyn with a lip that never shut. He chewed gum even in firefights. The butt of his M1 was worn smooth where his hand always sat. Princess took one look at you and jumped, Malloy said from behind us. Sergeant Tom Malloy. Tall, Iowa farm boy, shoulders like a barn door, helmet tilted back just enough to show the scar at his hairline where a piece of French stone had kissed him, in 44. Chewed on a matchstick when he didn't have a cigarette. The wind coming down off the hill tasted like stone and wood smoke and something else. Old damp, seller's cloth that hadn't been worn in a long time. Lieutenant Harper came walking along the ditch, map case against his hip. Skinny, mustache, too neat for the mud around us. Good officer. Kept his head when things went sideways. Listen up, he said. Town first, then we worry about that Disney joint up there. Company CP goes in the castle if it's clear. We're taking billets where we can get them. I'm tired of sleeping in wagons. Sir, I said, looks like there's still smoke from those chimneys. He followed my gaze. A thin thread of gray was curling lazily from one of the castle's roof lines. If there's someone up there, we'll find out, he said. One thing at a time, Garner. You and your boys take right-hand street. Clear the houses. Watch the alleys. Don't shoot any old ladies unless they shoot first. We went in. The town smelled like every other place we'd pushed through the last month. Cooked cabbage, coal, manure, fear. Curtains twitched, doors half opened, then shut again when they saw the rifles. Once or twice, some old man stepped out, with his hands up, white handkerchief waving. Once, a girl no older than my kid sister at home stood in a doorway with her arms wrapped around a toddler. She watched us go by with eyes like two dark bruises. We took no fire. Not a single shot from the town. A dog barked, got itself kicked quiet by someone we couldn't see. Too easy, Benny muttered, finger along his trigger guard. I like easy, Doc Levin said. Doc was our platoon medic. Glasses always slightly crooked. Came from Chicago, parents straight off the boat from Poland. Spoke enough German to get by. Carried a canvas bag that stank of iodine and bandages and old blood. He kept his head down as we moved past a little shrine on the street corner. A wooden box with a painted Madonna inside, crowned with a ring of plastic flowers gone gray. A votive candle burned at her feet, flame flickering in the draft. Someone had painted a black ribbon across her eyes. See that? Benny whispered. I saw it. I also saw the way the two old women watching us from a window across the street made the sign of the cross twice as we passed it. We cleared the town in 2 hours. No resistance. A couple of old Mausers stacked in a barn. A Hitler portrait turned face down on a tavern wall. A small pile of Volkssturm armbands on a table, like they'd been peeled off wrists in a hurry. The castle waited above us, watching. The road up to it hairpined, through a stand of pines. Snow lay in dirty strips along the ditches, stubborn. The branches sighed in the wind, a sound like someone whispering down a long hallway. Place gives me the creeps, Benny said, tightening his chin strap. I seen this movie. We go up there, walls close in, some lunatic in a black coat starts picking us off. Good thing you're the hero, Malloy said. Heroes don't die in the first act. Yeah, Benny grinned. What act we in, Sarge? Malloy didn't answer. Halfway up, we passed a stone pillar with a carved coat of arms on it, a shield, a pair of lions, a crown. Beneath it, someone had chipped away at the name with a hammer. Only a few letters remained. Stein. Whoever lived here pissed somebody off, I said. Or the other way around, Doc murmured. At the gate, we found the first German. He wasn't holding a rifle. He was slumped against the wall, back to the stone, legs bent under him. The front of his uniform was stiff with dried blood. His eyes were open. Flies crawled at the corners. A paper was pinned to his chest with a nail through the collar. The nail had gone in clean. Somebody had taken their time. Harper stepped forward, pulled the paper off, unfolded it carefully. His lips moved as he read. No one else could make sense of the loops and slashes. What's it say? I asked. He hesitated. Something about traitor, he said. Something about names. Names, Benny echoed. Harper folded the paper and stuck it into his map case. Let's move. Garner, take your squad right. Malloy left. We clear this place room by room. If anyone shoots at you, shoot back. Inside the gate, the courtyard opened up around us. Cobblestones, a stone well, a wooden cart, half-rotten by the wall. The keep towered above, windows narrow as arrow slits. A wooden gallery ran along the second floor, doors opening onto it. Every window had a face, not people, paintings, portraits, hung in gilded frames, 10, 20, 30 of them, staring down into the empty courtyard. Benny stopped dead in the middle of the stones, his breath puffing white. Christ, he said. Whole family reunion. Men in ruffs, women in stiff dresses with high collars, officers in blue uniforms with gold braids, kids with solemn eyes. The oldest ones were so dark with age that their faces almost disappeared into the background. I felt them like a weight, not just looking at us, looking through us. Measuring eyes front, Malloy snapped. Quit gawking at the wallpaper. Clear the damn place. We fanned out. The first floor smelled of cold stone and old grease. Kitchen with a big hearth, copper pots hanging, rows of pewter dishes, a dining hall with a table long enough to seat a company, a chapel with a worn stone altar and a crucifix where Christ's face had been scratched away. On a shelf by the altar, a row of little wooden plaques leaned against the wall. Each had a name painted in careful script. Each had a black ribbon tied through a hole at the top. To Tentaful Doc said quietly, "Death boards. 4 people who died." "How many?" I asked. He counted under his breath. His lips tightened. "Too many." Outside, someone called clear, voice echoing off stone. Another called attic secure. No shots, no shouting. Just the shuffle of boots, the murmur of voices, the scrape of furniture being moved. Harper established his CP in the big dining hall. A map spread on the table, radio set up at one end. The runner strung wire down the corridor, cursing every time it snagged. "Garner," Harper said, "your squad gets 2nd floor, east wing. There's a room with some beds, best we can do. We're here at least 2 nights, while the regiment sorts out this sector." "Yes, sir," I said. "And keep your men off the walls," he added, glancing at the portraits. "I don't want anyone shooting those things out of nerves. I don't need the colonel up my ass because somebody ventilated some baron's great-grandmother." Benny smirked. "Anyone says boo, I'm putting a round right in Grandma's eye." "Sir, try me, Ruiz," Harper said, but there was the shadow of a smile at the corner of his mouth. We went upstairs. The staircase groaned under our weight. Our boots left damp prints on the steps. The walls closed in, lined with tapestries that smelled of dust and old wool. Scenes of hunts, battles, saints doing saint things, while peasants bled underneath. On the 2nd floor, the corridor ran straight and long, boards creaking underfoot. Doors on the left, tall windows on the right, looking out over the courtyard and the town beyond. The light was thin and gray. Between each window, more portraits. They watched us walk past. "This is like marching through a family tree," Benny muttered. "You feel that? Like they're taking roll call." "Shut up, Ruiz," Malloy said. "Garner, pick rooms. Post a guard at each end of the hall. I don't want any surprises." We found a chamber with 5 narrow beds, mattresses stuffed with straw that made a crunchy sigh when you sat on them, a big wardrobe against one wall, a tall tile stove in the corner, cold now, a porcelain basin and pitcher on a washstand. It beat a barn, it beat a ditch. We dropped packs, took helmets off. The air still felt tight, like the room was holding its breath. "Dibs on the bed by the window," Benny said, tossing his gear onto it. "Dibs on the one nearest the stove," Doc said, "if we ever get that thing lit." I took the bed under a painting. I didn't look at it too closely at first. Just a man in an old-fashioned uniform, mustache, sword at his side, one hand resting on the hilt. His eyes followed me as I laid my rifle down, though. I couldn't pretend they didn't. Malloy checked the window latch, the shutters, the door. "We're here. We make the best of it," he said. "Guard shifts, 2 hours each. Garner, you take first watch. Ruiz, Levin, grab some shut-eye while you can. The Krauts may be done out there, but they can still be hiding in these hills." "Present company accepted," Benny said, giving the portrait above my bed a little salute. The painted man didn't salute back. He just stared. Later, when the castle had settled into the sounds of a place full of soldiers' boots, shouted jokes, a radio playing music faintly from downstairs, the quiet in our hallway felt wrong. I walked it with my rifle, back and forth, from stairhead to the last door, boots whispering on the boards. The windows showed the town below, lamps blooming one by one, as civilians remembered they were allowed to have light again. Beyond the town, the dark line of the forest. The portraits lined the wall at my back. Every time I turned, I felt them like a draft. At the far end of the corridor, a door stood slightly ajar. I didn't remember it being that way before. I stepped closer, chambering around out of habit. Light flickered inside. Candlelight, not electric. "Hello," I said in German. "Amerikaner. Don't shoot," a voice answered, dry and rough as paper. "Niemann schiet mehr, mein Jung," it said. "No one shoots anymore, my boy." I pushed the door open with the barrel of my rifle. Inside was a small room, maybe a servant's chamber once. Now it held a narrow bed, a table with a single candle, and an old woman in a black dress sitting in a chair, hands folded over a rosary. Her hair was white and pulled back tight. Her face was all lines and hollows. Her eyes were pale, almost colorless. She looked at the rifle first, then at me, then at the patch on my sleeve. "You are not SS," she said, as if confirming to herself. "No, ma'am," I said. "Us Army." She made a small sound in her throat. Could have been relief. Could have been something else. "I am Frau Meisner," she said. "Housekeeper, or was." Her eyes drifted past me, to the hallway. "You have put soldiers in the East rooms." "Yes," I said. "Under the ancestors," she said. "The paintings." I nodded. "We didn't have much choice. It's dry in there." She clicked her tongue softly. "Dry now, not later." Her gaze came back to my face. "You sleep under them tonight?" she asked. "Looks like," I said. She reached for the candle, pinched the wick with quick fingers, then relit it from a match, as if testing it. "They have been hungry," she said. Behind me, the boards creaked. For a second, I thought someone had come up the stairs. When I looked, the corridor was empty. "Herren," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Is there anyone else in the castle? Any soldiers?" Her mouth thinned. "The last ones went down to the village yesterday," she said. "You already know what you have or have not done with them." "We took prisoners," I said. "No one shot?" "Not yet," she said. She lifted the rosary a little, let it fall back against her hands. "You should not say your names too loudly in these rooms," she said. "They remember them. They like to keep them." "Who?" She smiled a little. It didn't touch her eyes. "The Herren and her wand," she said. "The lords on the wall." "Those are just paintings," I said. "Just bones are men when the breath is gone?" she asked. "Just wood is a cross when the body is taken down." I shifted my weight. The floor under my boot creaked in an odd way, as if there were empty space beneath it where there shouldn't be. "Look," I said, "we'll be here a day or two, then we move on. We don't mean any harm to your lords. The last war, they took names from this house too," she said. "You people took pictures then." My father remembered. Americans on the walls, laughing. They went to sleep under the ancestors. "What happened?" I asked. She looked at the candle, flame steady. "In the morning," she said, "3 men cannot be woken. They are cold and stiff, but their faces look like they are still listening. The officers shout. Doctors come. There is no gas leak, no poison. Just 3 men who will not wake, and 3 new plaques in the chapel within the week." She tapped the rosary. "Names have weight here, soldat. When you lie under them, speak softly, or not at all." A draft brushed my neck. I turned, down the corridor. Every painted face seemed a shade closer to the glass. "Thank you for the warning," I said. "You should sleep in the servants' quarters," she said. "The new wings, built before this war. The walls there do not listen. We go where we're told," I said. She nodded, as if that answer did not surprise her. "Then do not say I did not tell you," she said. Back in the room, the others were awake. Benny was sitting on his bed in his undershirt, cleaning his rifle, humming some tune from the radio. Doc was writing in a little notebook, glasses sliding down his nose. Malloy stood by the window, looking out over the town, cigarette between 2 fingers. "Found the housekeeper," I said. "Old lady in the end room. She'll give you cookies." Benny asked. "Warnings," I said. Malloy turned his head. "About what?" "Us sleeping under the portraits," I said. "Says they remember names. Take them." Benny made a spooky noise. "Who? Haunted paintings? Better than bedbugs, maybe." Doc just glanced up, expression hard to read. "The Germans have stories about everything," Malloy said. "You grow up in a place like this. Every rock's got a ghost. She's probably mad we kicked her boss out. Get some rack time, Garner. I'll take the next watch." I lay down on the straw mattress, the springs squeaking. The portrait above me looked straight down. A man with dark hair, small scar on his cheek, eyes the same shade of brown as coffee, left too long on a burner. Through the ceiling, faint thumps as men moved around upstairs. Through the floor, the murmur of voices from the dining hall below. Outside, the wind rubbing the pines against the walls, making a sound like long whispers. I closed my eyes. I must have dozed, because when I opened them, the light in the room had gone thin and blue. Evening, shadows long, and someone was saying my name. Garner. Not shouted, not spoken, breathed. I looked around. The beds around me were full. Benny on his back, mouth open, snoring softly. Doc turned to the wall, shoulders hunched, one hand under his pillow like he slept with a bandage roll ready. Malloy gone. He must be on watch. Garner, the voice said again. I turned my head, looked up. The man in the portrait's lips had parted. Not wide, just enough. Bill, he said, in an accent so thick I almost didn't recognize the sound as my name at first. William Garner. The air in the room went cold. My breath fogged. You're dreaming, I told myself. It's the wind. It's the boards. Sergeant, he murmured. Eins, Zug, Erst, Grupp. First platoon. First squad. Those words did not live in my dreams. I sat up fast, heart punching. The bed frame creaked loud. Benny snorted awake. What the? He pushed himself up on his elbows. Jesus, Sarge, you having a nightmare. You look like you swallowed a hand grenade. The painting, I said, pointing. He looked up at it, squinting, and then he laughed. Hell, he ain't much to look at, he said. What's he gonna do? Frown me to death? The portrait's mouth was closed. Paint, cracks. Scar on the cheek that now looked like any brushstroke. You didn't hear him, I demanded. Hear who? Doc mumbled, rolling over, blinking owlishly behind his glasses. That son of a bitch on the wall, I said. He said my name. Benny swung his legs over the side of the bed, stood, walked right up to the frame until his nose was inches from the glass. You token Fritz, he said. You got something to say to my sergeant. You say it to his face, huh? He put his hands on his hips and shook his head. Nothing. Maybe he's shy. Behind him, the candle on the washstand flickered. The flame bent sideways for a second, though there was no draft. Go back to sleep, Garner, Doc said. You've been on edge since Hagen. Brains keep running loops in here. He tapped his temple. I lay back down slowly. The painted man's eyes stayed on mine. Close up, I noticed something I hadn't before. In the dark paint under his collar, in the suggestion of his chest, there were tiny pale lines, the faintest outline of letters, as if someone had once painted a nameplate there and then painted over it. I couldn't read them yet. Harper called a platoon leaders meeting after dark. Malloy went down to the dining hall. I took his watch at the stairhead. The castle's noises changed at night. Wood settled. Stone sighed. Wind found new gaps to whisper through. Somewhere, deeper in the old part, something metal clanged once, like a chain pulled taut and then let go. On the third floor above me, a door creaked open. I heard footsteps, slow, heel, toe, heavy, like boots that remembered marching. Who's there? I called up, raising my rifle. The footsteps kept coming, but I saw no one on the stairs. They stopped just at the landing above my head. Name, I called. My own echoed back at me off the walls. Garner. Only it wasn't my voice. I backed down a step, the muzzle of my rifle tracking the empty space. Sweat trickled down my spine, despite the cold. The stairwell smelled faintly of polish and smoke, and something older. Cloth that had never seen our uniforms. Powder that had burned in different guns. Ruiz, I called. Doc, on me. Their door opened behind me. Boots thumped. Benny appeared at my shoulder in his undershirt, hair must M1 in hand. What is it? He hissed. Somebody's up there, I said. Doc came out behind him, tying his boots, teeth worrying his lower lip. We went up together. Third floor corridor, same narrow windows, same line of portraits. These ones darker, older, faces harder to make out in the low light. The air colder. No open doors. No movement. But the boards remembered weight. Little puffs of dust at certain places on the floor where nothing now stood. "You hear anything?" Benny whispered. "Footsteps," I said. "Stopped right here." I pointed at a spot in the middle of the hall. Benny stepped on it deliberately. The board creaked. Nothing else happened. He grinned at me. "Couple more nights out here. You're gonna ask Harper to requisition a priest, huh, Sarge?" "Maybe I'll requisition a muzzle for you," I said. But the line didn't have much bite. On the wall to our right, a portrait caught my eye. Not for its subject, but for what was beneath it. The wallpaper under most of the frames was faded but intact. Under this one, the plaster was stained darker, as if something had run down from the bottom of the frame and soaked into the wall over the years. Doc noticed it too. He leaned close, sniffed. "Smells," like he hesitated. "Like old iron, like dried blood." "Maybe your Germans were real bad at dusting," Benny said. We went back to our room. None of us slept deeply. In the morning, it started. The company mess was set up in the courtyard. Field kitchens steaming, coffee in big metal cans, guys lined up with mess kits. The air smelled of burned grounds and yesterday's grease. Someone had found a radio station from home, and Glenn Miller was doing his best to cut through the chill. I was halfway through my beans when I heard the first name. "Carson," someone said in a low, impressed voice. "You see that?" I turned. Private Eddie Carson from Kentucky stood near the wall, head tilted back, mess kit hanging from his fingers. He was looking up at a portrait of a young man in a blue uniform with gold trim, saber at his side. Benny followed my gaze. "What's got your attention, farm boy?" he called. Carson didn't answer. His freckles stood out stark against his pale skin. His mouth was half open. I walked over, boots tapping on the stones. "What's wrong, Carson?" I asked. He licked his lips. He had said, "My name, Sarge," he whispered, clear as anything. Like my granddad when he called me from the porch, he pointed at the painting. The young man in the blue uniform stared straight ahead, aloof as any aristocrat. "He said Eddie," Carson insisted. "Twice, I swear." "He didn't say pass the potatoes too?" Benny asked, trying to make it a joke. Carson shook his head. His eyes were wet. "I ain't crazy, Ruiz." I looked at the painting, at the way the paint cracked around the lips, the faint suggestion of teeth behind them. "Eat your chow," I said. "We got patrols this afternoon. You're not going out there on an empty stomach because some fancy pants lieutenant on the wall looked at you funny." He swallowed hard. "Yes, Sarge." As he turned away, I saw something I hadn't before. On the little brass plate at the bottom of the portrait's frame, the name had been almost completely worn away. Only a few letters remained visible through the tarnish and grime. "Son." The patrols that afternoon took us into the woods behind the castle. The pines stood close together, their trunks dark and straight. Snow lingered in the hollows, dirty and compact. The ground was a tangle of roots and old needles that muffled our steps. We found no Germans, no foxholes, no fresh tracks. We did find a stone marker, half hidden in the undergrowth. A short pillar, crooked, with a carved skull and 2 crossed bones on it. The kind of thing you saw on old churchyards sometimes. "Probably a boundary marker," Doc said. Below the skull, someone had carved words deeper and fresher than the rest. "Or den Namen ruft schuldet das Leben." Doc squinted, lips moving. "Who calls the name, owes the life," he translated. Benny shivered. Nice motto for the family. That night, we drew guard lots again. Carson ended up with the graveyard shift, 2 to 4. He begged me quietly to swap. "Please, Sarge," he said. "I ain't right in the head today." "You'll be fine," I said. "It's just 2 hours. Keep your eyes open, your rifle ready. Don't stare at the walls." His throat bobbed. "Yes, Sarge." He went. At 3 in the morning, the courtyard was black except for a slit of moonlight and the dull glow from the kitchen embers. The castle's bulk rose around it, a darker shape against the sky. The pines whispered. Somewhere, an owl called. I woke up because someone was saying my name again. This time, it wasn't the portrait. It was Benny, shaking my shoulder. "Bill," he hissed. "You hear that?" I pushed myself up, heart already ahead of my brain. "Hear what?" "Listen." Down the corridor, faint as a memory, a voice rolled out, syllables flat and hard. Names. A list. Ruiz, Benjamin, Carson, Edward, Levin, Jacob, Garner, William. I was out of the bed before he finished mine, boots half on, rifle in hand. The hallway was a tunnel of gray. The portraits along it were shadows with eyes. At the stairhead, Malloy was already there, shotgun in hand, jaw clenched. "You hear it?" I asked. "Names," he said. His voice sounded like it had been dragged over gravel. Sounded like that old bastard downstairs reading roster. We went down together. In the courtyard, the cold hit like a slap. Our breath smoked. The well stood in the center, a black hole in the stones. Carson was supposed to be on the wall walk above, by the gatehouse. He wasn't there. "Carson," I shouted. My voice bounced off stone and came back smaller. We split up. Benny and I took the right side, Malloy and Doc the left. Our boots rang on the stairs, our shadows jittering in the light, bleeding from a single lantern by the kitchen door. We found him by the well. He was lying on the stones, flat on his back, eyes wide open. His rifle lay beside him, safety still on. His face was slack, his lips parted as if to answer a question he hadn't heard. Doc dropped to his knees, fingers at Carson's throat, then at his chest. "Anything?" I asked, though I could already see the answer in the way Carson's chest didn't move. Doc shook his head slowly. "No bullet wounds," he said. "No blood, no vomit, nothing." His heart just stopped. Benny backed up a step, eyes darting to the portraits. "They did it," he whispered. He heard his name. "They took him." "Shut up," Malloy snapped. "You want the whole company jumping at shadows." But I saw the way his gaze slid toward the walls too. Above us, the portrait balcony was just a line of darker rectangles in the night. The faces were just patches of deeper shadow, and yet, I could feel them. In the morning, Carson's name went on the casualty list. Heart failure, probable cause. War did that to men, wore them down. We'd seen it. But as they wrapped him in a blanket and carried him through the courtyard, I looked up at the blue-uniformed young officer in the gilded frame. The tarnish on the brass plate under his portrait had cleared, as if someone had polished it in the night. The letters on it were sharp. Edward. Someone had scratched a second word, clumsy but clear, into the metal. "Carson." "Doc," I said. He looked, and his face went ashen. "That wasn't there yesterday," he said. The second day, whispers spread faster than orders. Nobody wanted to stand under the portraits alone. Men slept facing the wall, blankets pulled up to their ears. Someone took a sheet and covered the painting over my bed. I didn't stop him. Frau Meisner shuffled through the corridor once, carrying a bucket. She looked at the sheet and made the sign of the cross. "I told you," she said. "Names have weight here. Why ours?" I demanded. "We're not from this place. We're just passing through." She looked up at the line of portraits. "They do not care which war it is," she said. "They care that blood still walks under their roof." That afternoon, Harper got orders from Battalion Recon, reports of an SS group still skulking in the woods to the east, maybe trying to blow a bridge. We were to send 2 squads to sweep a ravine and make sure no one was waiting to hit the road at night. "Garner, your point," Harper said, tapping the map with his pencil. "Take Ruiz, Carson's old fire team, and 2 from 2nd Squad. Move out at 1600. In and back before dark if you can." "Carson's slot?" I asked. "Fill it with O'Hara," Harper said. "Why?" "Because the last guy whose name got said out loud by a painting dropped dead in our courtyard," I said. He stared at me for a long moment. "You want to put that in a report, Sergeant?" he asked. "You want to explain that to Battalion? Or you want to chalk it up to your nerves and get this job done?" His tone wasn't mocking, just flat. "I'll get it done, sir," I said. He nodded. "Good. and keep your men from spooking the others. They start believing the walls are out to get them, and every creak's going to sound like a trigger. Out in the ravine, the war felt simple again. Trees, rocks, the smell of damp earth, the crunch of snow underfoot, the weight of the rifle in my hands, comforting in its familiarity. We found boot prints, but they were old. We found a fox den, bones scattered around its mouth. We found a rusted helmet half buried in the mud, a relic from the last time somebody bled here. We did not find SS on the way back. The wind shifted, carried the sound of the castle's bell up the slope. One chime, then another, slow and deep, not the rapid peal of alarm. 5 o'clock, O'Hara said. Chow time. Move it, I said. I want you under that roof before dark. As we came up the path through the pines, the trees opened just enough to show us the castle. In the light of the sinking sun, every window flamed red. Not with fire, with reflection. For a second, it looked like the whole place was full of something burning just out of sight. Benny whistled low. Hell of a postcard. The bell chimed again. I counted the strokes without meaning to. 8. We reached the gate, passed under the face of the dead soldier still nailed at the entrance. His eyes seemed to follow us. In the courtyard, the mood was wrong. Too quiet. Men moving in tight little groups, voices low. No radio music. I grabbed the first guy I knew, Private Larkin from 2nd Squad. What happened? I asked. He swallowed. His Adam's apple bobbed. Doc says Feldman dropped, he said. Feldman. My gut went cold. How? Same as Carson, Larkin said. Just fell over in the upstairs hall. No bullet. Nothing. Heart stopped. Behind me, Benny swore softly. Jesus. He was on guard. He was walking past the paintings when it happened, Larkin added. He was humming that damn song from the radio. Then he just clutched his chest and went down. We thought he slipped at first. Where? I asked. 3rd floor, he said. By that ugly old lady with the pearls. I knew which one he meant. An old baroness, painted in heavy strokes, fingers as long as spider legs. Anyone see anything? I asked. Larkin hesitated. Frau Meisner was there, he said. She was yelling something in German. I only caught one word. Nomen. Names. Doc was in the makeshift aid station we'd set up in one of the side rooms off the hall. Feldman lay on a table, shirt open, dog tags hanging limp. His skin had the waxy look of someone who wasn't coming back. You check him for everything? I asked. Everything I can, Doc said. Pulse, pupils, chest. No trauma, no sign of stroke. I could cut him open and maybe find something if we had the tools. But we don't. And I doubt there's any explanation you'd like. Try me, I said. Doc looked up at me over his glasses. He heard his name, he said quietly. Larkin says he heard his name from the wall. Same as Carson. This is not medicine, I said. No, Doc said. This is not medicine. He took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes with his fingers. They were trembling. You know what my grandfather used to tell me back in Krakow, he said. He said, in some houses, the dead won't stay in their graves. They live in pictures and in names. You keep saying a name, they think you're calling them back. And if the living won't come willingly, the dead come and take. This isn't Krakow, I said. Stone is stone. Paint is paint. Names are names, he said. Doesn't matter which border the map shows this week. I put my hands on the edge of the table until my knuckles hurt. In the corridor outside, men walked slower than before, as if careful not to step on invisible lines. Someone had found a sheet and draped it over the portrait of the Baroness with pearls. The cloth clung to the frame, as if something behind it pressed back. Harper called an all hands in the dining hall. He stood at the head of the long table, helmet under his arm, map spread behind him. The radio's antenna, a thin shadow on the wall. The portraits in that room hung higher, in heavier frames. Their eyes were mud dark in the lamplight. 2 men dead in 2 days without a shot fired, he said. I know what's going around the rumor mill. I've heard words like curse and haunted and damn paintings in enough languages to get the gist. A nervous ripple of laughter went around the room. It died fast. We're here because Battalion wants this hill held as a strong point while they sort out the valley. Harper went on. We can't pick up and move to a farmhouse just because an old housekeeper thinks her walls talk. We will keep guard. We will keep discipline. And we will stop giving the goddamned enemy in those woods the satisfaction of seeing us spook each other. Sir? Someone said from the crowd. With respect, enemy ain't the problem here. Harper's eyes flicked that way. You have something to add, Private? Frau Meisner appeared in the doorway then, as if the words had called her. She stood there in her black dress, hair pulled tight, hands on her rosary. This house remembers, she said in German. Doc translated under his breath for the men nearby. She says the house remembers. Harper sighed quietly. Frau Meisner, with respect, we are in the middle of you pin a paper to a man's chest and nail it there. The house remembers, she said, voice sharp now. You hang your own sons for cowards. The house remembers. You draw up a list of names in candlelight and read it out while old blood runs between the stones. The house remembers. It always has. It took the names of peasants first, then soldiers. Now you bring more. Her eyes swept the room. For a second they met mine. Something like recognition passed between us. You should sleep where the walls are blank, she said. But you will not. So it will take what you give it. She turned and walked out, her shoes tapping on the stone like a metronome. Harper stood very still for a moment. We're doubling guard on the walls tonight, he said finally. No one walks the halls alone. You go somewhere, you go in pairs. Sergeant Garner, you and your squad have first shift on the second floor. Keep your men's eyes out for real threats. Dismissed. The men dispersed in uneasy knots. That night, the castle breathed. I could feel it. Every stone, every beam, every portrait frame. The second floor hallway was a tunnel of lamps and shadows. We'd strung extra wires and hung more bulbs, but the light felt thin and sickly. The portrait's varnish caught it in small glints that looked like wet eyes. Benny walked beside me, his M1 at port arms. You know what I was thinking, he said quietly. Do I want to know? I asked. He smirked, without humor. Back home, you walk down a street. You say hi to people. You say their names. Hey, Joe. Hey, Tony. You don't think about it. You just call them out. And I said. And here, you say someone's name. It feels like you dropped a rock in a well, and you're waiting to hear if it hits water or bone, he said. Stop saying names. Then, I said. Can't stop thinking them, he muttered. At the far end of the hall, near the little servant's room, where Frau Meisner slept, something scratched, not loud. Just the sound of nails or fingers on wood. We moved toward it, rifles ready. The door to her room was closed. The sound came from the wall beside it, a long, slow scrape. Like someone writing, Benny whispered. I put my ear to the wood. Under the plaster, something pulsed. A heartbeat, slow and heavy, not in my chest. I jerked back. You felt that? I asked. Benny nodded. His face had gone pale. We didn't knock. We didn't open the door. Some things you don't want to see. We turned back. Halfway down the hall, under the portrait outside our room, a small brass plate I hadn't noticed before gleamed in the lamplight. There were letters on it now. William Garner. Bill. Benny breathed. That wasn't there, I said. No, it wasn't, Doc said behind us. He'd come up quiet, bandage bag over his shoulder like a shroud. His own name wasn't on any plate yet. I looked at the portrait above. The man with the scar on his cheek smiled the way a man does when the card he wanted finally falls into his hand. The house had been listening. We lasted one more night. Orders came at dawn. SS elements spotted moving toward the town from the east. Battalion wanted us to hold the hill at all costs. Anchor point, while tanks moved on the road below. If anyone tried to use the woods to flank the column, they'd run into us first. Congratulations, Harper said dryly. We're the cork in the bottle. By mid-morning, we had machine guns on the walls, ammo belts laid out, Sandbags stacked where they'd do the most good. Men crouched behind parapets, eyes on the tree line. The portraits watched our backs. Artillery in the distance thumped like a slow heartbeat. The sky was low and gray. Snow flurries drifted, then turned to cold rain. Around noon, they came. Shadows moving between the trees, glints of metal, the snap of branches under boots. Targets, 400 meters. Tree line, Malloy called. Hold till they're in the open. The first men broke from the woods at a run, splashing through the shallow ditch. Assessed by their uniforms, black smudged by mud, helmets low. They spread out, rifles up. Fire, Harper shouted. The wall erupted. Our machine guns hammered. Rifles cracked. The air filled with the high, flat snap of rounds and the deeper thump of our .30 cals. Men in the field jerked, stumbled, fell. Some kept coming. Bricks chipped around my head as rounds slapped the wall. The sound of bullets on stone was like someone hitting a bell with a hammer. Left flank, they're trying to get under us. Benny shouted, pivoting, firing. Smoke rolled up from below. Someone had thrown grenades into the base of the wall, hoping to blow a breach. The blasts shook the stones under our boots. Doc, 2 down by the gate. Malloy yelled. Doc moved, body low, bag bumping at his side. I tracked a man sprinting across the open, his face a blur under his helmet, mouth open in a yell I couldn't hear. I squeezed the trigger. He folded as if someone had cut his strings. The air tasted like cordite and wet stone and something underneath, copper and dust. During a lull between magazine changes and shouted corrections, a voice rode up through the chaos, calm, measured, unhurried. It came from the portraits. Benjamin Ruiz, it said. Benny's name, in that same thick accent, clear as the bell. He froze for a fraction of a second, just long enough. A bullet took him in the neck. His body jerked backward, arms flung wide, rifle clattering to the parapet. Blood sprayed the stones in an arc. His helmet tumbled, bounced once, flipped over the wall, into the courtyard below. I grabbed him, hands slipping on the red slick. Benny, I shouted. He made a sound, a wet gargle. His eyes sought mine wide, uncomprehending. His right hand reached blindly for something. For his helmet, where he always tucked that little picture of a girl from home. He found only rough stone. Doc slid in beside us, hands already moving, bandage wrapping, fingers pressing. It's bad, Bill, he grunted. Hold him. I held him. For a minute, the world narrowed to the feel of his weight against me, the warmth of his blood on my hands, the rattle in his throat. The gunfire became far away, like a storm on another shore. His eyes flicked upward. I followed his gaze. Above us, the portrait of the man with the scar on his cheek watched with mild interest. On the brass plate below, new letters were etching themselves, as if an invisible hand were carving them. Benjamin Ruiz. Don't you write that? I snarled at empty air. Don't you take him? Benny's fingers dug into my sleeve once, hard. Bill, he whispered. A bubble of blood popped at the corner of his mouth. Don't let them. Say my. His voice trailed off. His hand fell. Doc's fingers stayed on his neck longer than they needed to. No pulse, he said. He's gone. Something in me broke in a way that mortar and bullets hadn't managed in all the months before. I grabbed my rifle, stood, and fired until the clip pinged dry. Fired at the tree line, at shadows, at anything that moved. When I reloaded, my fingers left smears of blood on the cartridges. Garner, Harper shouted. Control your fire. You hear that? I yelled back. You hear what they did? He didn't answer. The attack faltered. Our fire and the angle of the walls did their work. Bodies lay in the field. The survivors dragged their wounded and dead back into the woods. The shooting dwindled, then stopped. The pines whispered again. We stood panting behind the parapet, ears ringing, lungs burning. In the sudden quiet, the voice from the walls spoke again. Jacob Levin, it said. Doc stiffened. I didn't say my name, he whispered. You didn't have to, I said. Below us, in the courtyard, a shout went up. Men ran toward the base of the inner wall. "Doc," someone yelled. "We need you down here." He looked at me, at the portrait, at Benny's body. "I'll come back," he said. "Don't go alone," I said. He nodded, swallowed, and ran. I watched him disappear down the stairs. The echo of his boots on stone sounded too much like a drumbeat at a funeral. When he was gone, I turned back to the portrait. "You got two," I said. My voice shook. I didn't care. "You're not getting any more." The man with the scar smiled slightly, as if enjoying the conversation. On his plate, under my name and Benny's, space remained. The rest of that day is a blur of stretchers and body bags, and reports. We counted our dead. 3 from the wall, 2 from mortars that hit the outer yard. Harper called battalion, gave the numbers in a voice that had no color left in it. Doc did come back. For a while. I found him sitting alone in the chapel that evening. The little death boards on the shelf above him like a row of watching eyes. The crucifix on the wall had started to crack where the nails went through the painted hands. "You heard it," he said when I stepped inside. "You heard them say my name." "Yes," I said. He stared at the stone floor. "When I went down to the courtyard," he said, "the man they called me for had a piece of shrapnel in his belly. Not bad, by the look. I've fixed worse." I was talking to him, telling him he was going to be fine. Then I heard it again. My name, right in my ear. Like someone leaned over my shoulder. He touched the side of his neck. I turned. No one there. When I turned back, his eyes were rolled back. Heart stopped. Just like that. I had my hands on him, Bill. It was like something reached through me, used the space where my name lives, and pulled. He laughed once, a sharp, humorless sound. "If I were a superstitious man," he said, "I'd say the house gave me his death to carry." "You're not superstitious," I said. He looked at the crucifix. "I am now," he said. That night, I couldn't make myself lie down under the portrait. I took my blanket and went to the little servant's room by the stairs. Knocked once. "Come," Frau Meisner's voice said. She sat on her narrow bed, hands folded, candle on the table. The air smelled of tallow and old linen. "I told you," she said without preamble. "You did," I said. "Can I sleep here?" She raised one eyebrow. "The mighty American soldier is afraid of painted men." "Yes," I said. Something in my bluntness seemed to satisfy her. She shifted, making a little room on the floor. "You may," she said, "but you must do something for me." "What?" I asked. "Do not say my name tonight," she said. "Not once, not even in your mind. Think of me as no one, or as dust. It listens, even here." I lay on the floor, blanket wrapped around me, staring at the ceiling. Every sound the castle made went through my bones. At some point, I must have slept, because I woke to the sound of wood cracking. A loud, sharp report, like a rifle but closer. Then another. I was on my feet with the second. "That is not thunder," Frau Meisner said, already standing, candle in hand. Her eyes were wide in a face that had seen too much. "They are opening the wall." "Who?" I asked. She didn't answer. We went into the hall. A wind ran through it, though every window was shut. The portraits moved slightly on their hooks, as if pushed by invisible fingers. From the far end, where the staircase to the 3rd floor rose, a glow seeped down. Not firelight, not electric. A pale, sickly light, like something underwater. We walked toward it, drawn on the 3rd floor landing. The wallpaper had split open in a long vertical crack. Plaster bulged, crumbled, fell in chunks to the floor. Behind it, in the exposed stone, a door took shape. Not built, not hinged. Just lines of darker stone outlining where it would be. As we watched, the stone in the middle of those lines softened, not melted, not dissolved. Softened, like wax held too near a flame. A smell came with it. Old damp, cloth ink, varnish. "Don't go closer," Frau Meisner said, grabbing my sleeve. "Someone's in there," I said. "Someone has always been in there," she said. "Leave it shut." The pain in my leg from an old wound flared as if something underneath the scar had woken up. My name on the brass plate burned behind my eyes. The stone pulsed once. From inside, voices murmured. All at once, the portrait spoke. Not in words I knew, in a soft rise and fall, a chant of syllables and sounds that made my skin crawl. Names, I knew somehow. Names older than German, older than the coat of arms on the gate. The door in the wall pushed outward. A hand emerged first, pale, long-fingered, knuckles knobby, nails like yellowed chips of horn. It pressed against nothing and left a smear of dark on air. I aimed my rifle at it. My hands shook. Don't, Frau Meissner hissed. You will not hurt what is not flesh. The hand withdrew. In its place, a face leaned out of the stone. It was the man from my portrait. Not paint now, not flat. His scar stood out livid on his cheek. His eyes were darker, deeper. When he smiled, the teeth were wrong in ways I couldn't count. He looked at me, then at Frau Meissner, then back at me. William Garner, he said. My heart stuttered in my chest. Beside me, Frau Meissner whispered something under her breath. Her rosary beads clicked. The man's gaze slid along the wall, touching each portrait. Jacob Levin, he said. Thomas Malloy. Harold Harper. Every name he spoke tightened something inside me. He was reading a list, same as the officers did in the mornings. Only his roster didn't stop at our platoon. Somewhere below, in the courtyard, a man screamed. The sound cut off abruptly. We have to get the men out, I said. Frau Meissner shook her head. You cannot outrun a house, she said. It is already under your feet wherever you go. I fired anyway. The shot cracked in the confined space, left my ears ringing. The bullet passed through the space where his head had been. Stone dust puffed from the wall. When it settled, the door was gone. The plaster hung in ragged sheets. The wallpaper flapped once, then lay still. The portraits along the hall creaked on their hooks, as if someone had brushed by them in the dark. My bullet had left a white mark on the stone, a scar. We spent the rest of the night in a half-panicked, half-disciplined scramble, checking rooms, counting heads. 2 more men were dead. One in his bed, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, as if listening. One on the stairs, slumped against the wall, hands still on the railing. No wounds, no blood. In the morning, Harper went down to the battalion HQ in town and came back with new orders. Division's moving on, he said. They want us with them. Engineers will come up from regiment and use this place as a supply dump later. We're to be on the road by 1400. No one complained. We packed with a speed we'd never managed in any farmhouse or barn. Men rolled blankets with hands that shook, their eyes flicking to the walls. As I stuffed my gear into my pack, I felt the pull. It came from above my bed, from the portrait. The man with the scar stared down with something like disappointment. On the brass plate, my name and Benny's and Doc's were there now, clear and sharp. Under them, another had appeared in the night. Thomas Malloy. I froze. Malloy, I called. No answer. He wasn't in the room. He wasn't in the corridor. They found him in the small storage closet by the stairs, sitting on a crate, head bowed as if in prayer. Heart stopped. No one had heard him fall. Something in me refused to leave all of it here. I don't know if it was anger or spite or some other stupid part of me that thought I could take their toys away. While the others carried packs down the stairs and Harper shouted times and routes, I stood on my bed, reached up, and lifted the portrait off its hook. It was heavier than it looked. The frame dug into my fingers. The glass was cold. I tucked it under my arm, heart pounding, and slipped it into my duffel wrapped in a blanket. The canvas sagged with the weight. Frau Meissner watched from the doorway. You are a fool, she said. Maybe now it stops, I said. Maybe if I take him away from the others. He can't take and take, she said, shaking her head. You people always take. Pictures, clocks, silver. You think you can loot memory. You are not taking him away from the house. You are taking the house with you. I hefted the bag, felt the way the weight settled like a stone in my gut. Then at least, it's my problem, I said. You do not get to decide that, she said. Names spread. Outside trucks idled in the courtyard, exhaust smoky in the cold air. Men climbed aboard, rifles slung, helmets on. As I walked under the gallery one last time, every portrait's gaze followed me. The man in the blue uniform, the baroness with pearls, the children with solemn eyes. Their plates gleamed. Some had new letters carved, clumsy and fresh. Carson Feldman, Ruiz and Levin Majoy. I didn't look at mine. On the road, past the stone pillar with the chipped coat of arms, past the little shrine with its blinded Madonna, past the ravine where we tramped through snow, the castle loomed behind us for a long time. It didn't get smaller the way buildings usually did. It just receded into the gray, a dark shape that refused to blur. In the back of the truck, my duffel sat between my boots. The portrait inside shifted with each bump. "What you got in there, Sarge?" O'Hara asked. "Feels like you packed half a piano." "Just a souvenir," I said. He whistled. "Man, you're gonna have some story for your kids." I thought of my children, faces from photographs, not from memory. I thought of names carved on plates, names spoken in the dark. I didn't answer. We went on. War didn't end for us that day. We had more towns to clear, more bridges to hold. We pushed into the mountains, found pockets of Wehrmacht that didn't know or didn't care that Berlin was falling. But the castle followed me. In barns, in bombed-out houses, in field tents. I'd open my duffel to grab socks or rations, and my fingers would brush the frame. The glass stayed cold, even when the rest of the bag was warm. At night, when I lay on whatever surface passed for a bed, I'd hear it. A soft, patient whispering from wherever my duffel sat. Bill, William, Garner. Sometimes, other names rode with it. Names of men in other companies. Men I didn't know yet, but would. The day the war officially ended for us, the streets of a small Austrian town filled with people, banging pots, waving flags. My platoon celebrated with beer and whatever local schnapps they could find. In the middle of it, Private Jenkins from Mortar Squad dropped dead in the town square, mug in hand, smile still on his face. No wounds, no warning. His dog tags clicked once against the cobbles. On his second tag, the chain had caught the edge of his shirt and scratched a line. It crossed his last name just below the letters, like a line on a list. I shipped home with the portrait. Customs didn't care what an infantry NCO had in his duffel, as long as it wasn't a Luger or a flag they wanted to keep as a prize for some colonel. A rolled-up piece of canvas-wrapped wood meant nothing to them. My wife, Margaret, met me at the station with the kids. Tommy on her hip, Sarah hiding behind her skirt. The air smelled of coal smoke and hot dogs from a vendor on the platform. People clapped when we stepped off the train. She cried when she saw me. I held her and felt more like a ghost than any of the things that had followed me. We moved into a small house on the edge of town. 2 bedrooms, a sagging porch, a garage that smelled of old oil. The portrait came out of the duffel and leaned against the wall in the attic for a while. I told myself I'd thrown it away. I didn't. Sometimes, when the house was quiet, I'd go up, stand there in the dust, and look at him. He'd look back. "You got enough?" I'd ask. He never answered. Over the years, work and babies and broken appliances filled the spaces where memories tried to seep. I did shifts at the factory, came home smelling of grease and metal, fell asleep in front of the TV more nights than I can count. Names followed us. Neighbors, co-workers, friends. Some lived long and loud lives, some didn't. A man from my shift collapsed at his machine one afternoon. Heart. The foreman said it was stress. The doctor said it was cholesterol. I heard a whisper in the whine of the belts. The night my daughter Sarah had her first child, I sat in the hospital waiting room with a paper cup of coffee that tasted like burnt rain. The fluorescent lights buzzed. The floor was too clean. On the wall, there was a print of a painting. Not my man, not the castle. something soft and harmless, a bowl of fruit. In the reflection on the glass, behind the apples and grapes, I saw him. He leaned in from a place that wasn't the hospital corridor. "Garner," he said. "Grandfather, I didn't bring the portrait into our bedroom. Margaret knew something was off. She'd catch me staring at nothing, wake me up when I thrashed in my sleep. 'What is it?' she'd ask. 'Just an old house in Germany,' I'd say. She rolled her eyes. 'Leave it there then.' I tried, I said. It didn't stay. She never saw the plate. It changed over the years. The names of my men stayed: Carson on Feldman, Ruiz, Levin, Malloy. Under them, in smaller letters, others appeared. People the house had claimed in other wars, maybe. Other languages, other scripts. Between them, in a space that had once been blank, new names scratched themselves slowly. Margaret Garner. The day I found that, I took the portrait off the wall in the garage, where I'd finally hung it, and shoved it behind a stack of boxes. It didn't matter. She died in her sleep, 2 years later. Heart, no waking, no warning, just gone. At the funeral, at the 10,000th handshake and muttered condolence, someone said my name with the same weight the portraits used. "I'm sorry, Mr. Garner," the priest said. Margaret was a good woman. He didn't hear the echo in the church walls. I did. When I went home that night, the portrait had moved. I'd left it in the garage, behind boxes of Christmas decorations. I found it in the hallway by the bedroom, leaning against the wall. "Enough," I told him. He smiled. The kids grew up, moved away, called on Sundays, sent pictures. I downsized to a smaller place, then to an apartment. Then, when the stairs got too much, to this room. The portrait came with me. The first night here, I told the orderly to hang it on the wall, opposite the bed. "You sure you want that old thing?" he asked. "We got nicer prints here, I'm sure," I said. I wanted to see him. I wanted him where I could watch him. Now, when the nurse comes in at night to check my vitals, she glances at the frame. "Creepy old guy," she jokes. "Where'd you get him?" "Germany," I say. "Bet he's seen some things," she says. "He has," I answer. "They don't hear him. He doesn't say their names. Not yet. Sometimes, when my grandchildren visit, they look up at him." "Who's that, Grandpa?" little Emma asked once, thumb in her mouth. "A man who owned a house a long time ago," I said. "Is he nice?" she asked. "He remembers," I said. The brass plate is almost full now. My name is starting to fade at the top, letters worn, as if someone had run their fingers over them 1,000 times. Below, fresh scratches gleam. Karen, the nurse who brings my meds. Dr. Patel, the cardiologist. Emma, that's the one that makes my hand shake when I touch the frame. "You leave her alone," I say. He looks at me with the same calm he had when he leaned out of the wall. The calm of someone who has seen wars come and go, and knows he will still be here when the last flag falls. "You brought me," he whispers. "You opened the door?" I think of that night, of my bullet marking the stone, of my hands lifting the frame from the castle wall. I think of Frau Meisner saying, "You cannot outrun a house." I am old now. My heart stumbles sometimes, misses a beat, then races to catch up. The doctors have names for it. AFib, ischemia. They talk about medications and pacemakers. The man in the frame has another list. I sit back down in my recliner, the cushions sagging under my weight. The oxygen hose tugs at my nose. The TV shows some advertisement for cleaning products, bright and meaningless. "You wanted a story," I say to the empty room, to the painted man, to the ghosts that lean in when the sun goes down. "You wanted to hear what happened in that Bavarian castle in '45. How a bunch of tired American infantry found a house that remembered too much." The portrait waits. His eyes do not blink. "I walked under your roof," I say. "I slept under your faces. I heard you say our names. I watched my men drop without a shot fired. I stole your picture and carried you across an ocean. That's on me." My chest tightens. The monitor by the bed beeps a little faster. Karen will be in soon with the evening meds. She'll knock, poke her head in, ask if I want the light off or on. She doesn't know her name is already etched where mine once was. Here's what we're going to do, I tell him. You and me. I reach for the frame. My fingers find the same little nail hole on the back edge. The groove my thumb has worn over the years. I lift. The portrait comes off the wall with a soft sigh, as if it had been leaning forward just enough to make it hard. The room feels bigger without his gaze. I carry him to the bed, set him down face up on the blanket. He watches me with mild curiosity. My heart is pounding now, louder than the radiator, louder than the TV. I climb onto the bed and sit with my back against the headboard, the portrait resting on my knees. The glass is cold through the thin hospital blanket. You like names, I say. You live on them. You take breath where you can. He doesn't deny it. So take mine, I say. Take what's left. Take it all. But you leave theirs. My hand shakes as I run my finger over the plate. The letters blur. William Garner. Keepsake of a house that remembers. I dig my fingernail into the metal, scratching hard. The sound is small, but it lives in my bones. Under my name, I scratch another word. Stop. My chest feels tight. There is a buzzing in my ears. The edges of the room go soft. He leans closer in the glass. You cannot bargain, he whispers. I can try, I say. The air smells like the castle again. Cold stone, old oil, candle smoke, pine sap drifting in from the woods. I hear boots on cobbles, Benny's laugh, Doc's mutter, Malloy's low curse when the coffee ran out, Carson humming some hymn under his breath. They're all here, crowding into this little room. Bill, Benny says somewhere to my left. You always were a stubborn bastard. Shut up and hold the door, I tell him. The painted man's mouth opens wider than paint should allow. Behind his teeth, there's no darkness. There's a corridor lined with portraits, stretching farther than any castle wall. Faces from wars I don't know, uniforms that haven't been sewn yet, eyes waiting for names. My heart stutters. Garner Karen's voice calls from the hall. Time 4. She stops in the doorway. I don't know what she sees. An old man on his bed, clutching a painting. Or something older, leaning close over him. I try to speak, to tell her to get rid of it, to burn it, to take it back to the hill and bury it in the chapel under the boards with the names. My tongue feels thick. The man in the frame whispers my name one last time. It sounds like a sigh of satisfaction. Something loosens in my chest. The monitor by the bed shrieks. I fall sideways. The portrait slips from my hands, hits the floor face down. Glass cracks. In the space between one beat and none, I see the castle again. Snow in the shadows. Smoke from the chimney. Men in green jackets and steel helmets crossing the courtyard, rifles on their shoulders. An old woman in black at a window, fingers on her rosary. Behind them, on the walls, the portraits watch. Their mouths move. Names roll out in a language that has nothing to do with words. Then there's only the sound of the wind in the pines. If you want more stories that keep whispering after the screen goes dark, you stay close and listen for the names the walls don't want you to hear. For the men of Company E, 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Division, and for the ones whose names the house never gave back. I lay this story down like a plaque on the chapel wall.